Welcome back, y'all. It is the Drunk Capitalist here, and it is September 21st. Today is Women's Equal Pay Day. As we have wages to fight for, they have another fight looming, okay? America is facing a national housing crisis. Rent is skyrocketing, home prices are skyrocketing, inflation, interest rates. It's a lot. So let's talk about the rise in eviction and particularly how it affects Black women and Black people. The title lets you know that Black women face the highest rate of eviction, and that's just a fact. This is going to be one hell of a conversation, so I encourage you to listen till the end, because there's a lot of info and stats that I'm going to share in order to frame this conversation. And I really want you guys to engage with me on this one in the comment section. This will be as objective as possible, and I don't aim to make any excuses for or to bash Black women. So if that's what you're looking for, sorry, not today. This is a problem that Black people as a whole face. And of course, Black women are facing it at a higher rate, but it's still a community issue. So first thing I want to point out is that in this day and age, right, we must look further and deeper than the title of an article or news segment. We have to look at the numbers and actually read them in order to avoid adopting the narrative that the reporters and networks want you to run with. They often make surface claims in order to garner clicks, but a good journalist will present information equally upfront. But before we get into that, let's add some social context.
Housing security in the U.S. since the pandemic is on track to become a crisis, and Black women are being affected the most by it. According to Eviction Lab, there were more than 434,000 evictions last year. So for some context to this, the eviction moratorium was in place for a large portion of the year, but the number of renters at risk of eviction as of January spiked to about 3 million and counting. And of those, Black women have the highest average of eviction filed against them at 6.2%, compared to white women at 3.4%. Now that equates to 1 in 4 Black renters living in a place where Black eviction filing rates were almost double than that of their white counterparts. So joining us now is Akira Drake Rodriguez. She's an assistant professor of city and regional planning at the Stuart Weitzman School of Design at the University of Pennsylvania. She's also the author of Diverging Space for Deviance, the Politics of Atlanta's Public Housing. Professor Drake, great to have you with us. Thank you for joining us. So can you give us an idea of why evictions are so high for Black women specifically, and the short and long-term impact it's having on them and their families?
Sure. So Black women traditionally are tasked with a lot of the caretaking roles of both their immediate family, but also their extended family. And so what you're more likely to see is that these are the women who are going to be having to take in cousins, having to take in people who are experiencing their own economic precarity or housing precarity, in addition to their own families. As sort of the head caretakers, you also see that they're more likely to make these sorts of sacrifices. So you see Black women, and all women actually, but Black women in particular, because they have kind of less opportunity and less access, more likely to stay, for example, in substandard housing or expensive housing if it means that their child has access to a good school or they have access to a job opportunity. And so you kind of create these sort of cascading problems and issues when it comes to evictions, in that they are more likely to lose their job. They are more likely to have to travel further for work, increasing their economic precarity, and more likely to be the caretaker and taking on a lot of additional families into their household. So getting this eviction is this very sort of permanent stain on their record. It impacts their credit, it impacts their ability to find more housing. A lot of these Black women are more likely to experience bouts of homelessness as a result of these evictions. Their credit is less likely to remain intact after having some of these housing issues. So it's really, when we talk about intersectionality, it really is a prime example of how intersectionality works, right? They are less likely to be.
Okay, so we could pause right there. We don't really have to watch the entire video. But I did want to share some responses to the video from the Manosphere section, the Black Manosphere specifically. O'Shea Du Jackson also reviewed this video, and I want to share some of the comments with you guys. So some of the people there are saying, leave me alone when I got it, help me when I don't got it. Strong and independent mantra. The one thing I've learned about women, and especially Black women, is it's everyone else's fault. Most Black women with these high eviction numbers are not independent as they claim. This part is not really legit. Apparently, degrees in marketing, sociology, social work, and general studies don't pay much, while certification as a electrician, mechanic, plumber, HVAC tech pay quite well. High education does not equal economic power, just smart, broke people. All she did is push out more excuses for bad decisions, living outside their financial ability, and of course trying to look rich instead of investing and saving. Having multiple out-of-wedlock children by broke males leads to eviction. Surprised. Strong and independent until the bills are due. Then it's where are all the good men? I couldn't agree more. Yesterday here in Ohio, I kicked out a so-called independent Black woman out of my apartment as she refused to pay rent. She got mad at me and started bragging that she makes $5,000 a month. LOL. I sent that loud mouth packing in the middle of the night on Thursday. They always want to have the last word. She sent me a ton of text messages cussing me out. You can't make this stuff up. Well, that's an illegal eviction. It doesn't sound very legal to me. I'm strong and independent. I got a master's. I got a career. I don't need no man. My kids are in a package jail. All the good Black men are on the down low. Eviction time. Where are all the B kings? I'll think about you while I sit in my warm home with the tub filled with hot water. So sick of our Black women making all these bad decisions and pointing to every other thing but self. When I'm an independent woman, don't need no man, goes wrong. Doing it all by yourself has a cost. Everyone else consolidates resources. Black women just have to prove they're superior to men at all costs. Dr. O'Shea, they don't need a man and get mad when a Black man runs to another culture. Thank you, Dr. O'Shea, for telling it like it is. Black women, if you can't pay all my bills, don't talk to me. Black men, okay. So there you have it. We got quite a few responses where basically people are just like, ha ha, look at you, this is what's happening, what have you. To me, it's more like throwing stones in the glass house, because in all the videos that I've seen thus far on YouTube of people, Black people specifically, reviewing this video specifically, people have all been like, ignoring the fact of the matter of everyone that's getting evicted, including Black men themselves. They're completely ignoring that and just saying, well, Black women, y'all the most evicted, ha ha. Well, eviction is an issue, and it's an issue for everyone. Yes, it's affecting Black women more, but we should be erring towards fixing eviction in general. But never mind with that. I want to point out, eviction does not equate to homelessness. And homelessness does not equate to being unsheltered. We're all adults here. We know what these words mean. So far with the commentary, I've heard people saying, thought you were most educated, starting businesses, high earners, boss babe, independent, etc., strong. And they basically are questioning the eviction rates, claiming it's a contradiction when, in my opinion, this is the drunk capitalist here, in reality, I think two things can be true. And it is the case that two things can be true. Here's a quick example. Caucasians hold the most wealth in our country, yet they are the highest recipients of government assistance and welfare. No one's questioning how that makes sense, but it does, and it's very simple. The same people that have all the money are not the same people that are on welfare. It's just that simple. Evictions aren't always a financial mishap, but it is often financial, and sometimes an issue with lease breaking or something goes awry. Sometimes neighbors just don't even like your kids and they're tired of it, or having people living in the residence that are not on the lease, so that is an issue. there has been a situation in the recent year where a young girl was seen by her neighbors at the pool in the building, and she was dancing. The neighbor said she was twerking, and then her family was evicted. It wasn't because they weren't paying their bills. It's literally because their neighbors don't like them and the landlord doesn't care. So, and then there's this TikTok video I want to show you guys of another situation with the landlord, and she explains why she evicted her tenants.
I have no problem with the girl who has the voucher. And that's always the case. It's the little dude she has with her. Okay? Now his name ain't knowing nothing. Okay? As usual. He done moved these dogs into my house. These dogs have stank up my basement, and I mean reek. You can smell it from the top of the stairs.
So yeah, you just saw that video, and clearly the issue is that that woman had a man living with her that was on the lease, and he was causing a disturbance. The woman, the landlord that was speaking, she is married. She's the one that went out to her husband and told her husband that she wanted to help out a family on Section 8, you know, in order to give back, because she came from such a life and she wanted to do something to give back. She now owns property and she wanted to rent out. This is the situation. So she ended up evicting that family, not because she had an issue with the actual black woman, but because of the precarious living situation that the black woman brought to the tenancy. Now, with the global health crisis that we just recently experienced, many people of all races and genders experienced financial hardship, and there was a moratorium placed on evictions. So evictions that were filed prior to the crisis were on hold, and new filings were not permitted. This was to avoid complete catastrophe. Our economy would have been crazy if people were just kicked out left and right in the, you know, during 2020 to 2022. And now with the housing prices increasing exponentially post-crisis, now landlords aren't quite incentivized to keep lower income tenants when there are people willing to pay more. Right now in New York, people are paying $1,200 for a room in an apartment. So it's going to be very hard to convince a landlord to rent a 2-bedroom to a single mom for a reasonable price of $1,800 when he know he can get $2,400 if he rents to these 2 young single, you know, kids, basically, or early 20-year-old kids that are not even thinking about their future, that are willing to splash down over $1,000 for a bedroom just to live in Brooklyn. So it's a very tough situation. So they're not incentivized to do it, especially if the current tenant has a history of missed or late payments. Now, if you missed a payment way in the past, there's some landlords hold it against you, and as soon as they can get you out, they will. Why am I talking about filing rate, though? Because filing does not always result in an actual eviction or vacation of the property. While the chart accurately titled Eviction Filing Rate, the same statisticians, Eviction Lab is their name, have more charts on their website, one titled Eviction Rate, which shows black women's eviction rate at 3.5%, black men's rate at 3.4%. So the actual eviction of black people of either gender is very close. And yes, black women do face evictions at a higher rate, but in reality, black people overall face eviction at a higher rate. Overall, black people are facing higher evictions across the board, across the country, in almost every neighborhood. Why point this out? I point it out because I question why they haven't presented the full information gathered. And I think it's more to entice and, you know, create division when you throw that higher number up of 6.2%, when you really could have just put 3.5 and called it a day, because that's the reality. So let's, you know, get into some factors that go into black women having highest evictions. most one of the biggest reasons that women in general, especially black women, have the highest convictions, number one, is most likely they have children. In most cases of eviction, the women have children. Having children is the single greatest predictor of whether someone will face eviction. And this is across the board for everyone, but especially harder on black women since we, and I say we very sparingly because I am not a single black mother. We, black women, lead in single motherhood and out of wedlock births. These are just the fact. Hispanics are catching up to us, though. They're about to beat us any day now. It currently costs about $250,000 to raise a child to legal age. That is $250,000 and rising, okay? So this is a huge amount of money to take on. As you saw in the comments, a lot of men are saying the simple solution is get a man. But, you know, that's not really the solution. Let's be real. I think the better solution is for you to, you know, get married, build financial security with your partner, and then have children. The decision to have children is a financial one. You know, this is the Drunk Capitalist channel. This is where we're talking about finances and making the right decisions. Having children is a financial decision. It is business, and it's imperative that you offer your child the best life possible. And, you know, life comes at you fast. So if you plan for your children, you'll have a better chance. But, you know, things still do happen in life. You know, I'm not saying that if you plan to have your child and things are good, you have your home and you have your job, you have your car, and you plan to have your children and you have them and nothing is going to go wrong after that. No, that's not what I'm saying. But if you start out at a deficit, you start out without secure housing, you start out without a good job, you start out without all the things that you need, the support system that you need, then yeah, it's probably not going to go well. And the chances are higher for you to stumble and actually fall when you do. But like I said, here's a recent video that shows why just getting a man is not always the solution, and why men need to be more wary of throwing stones. And I'm speaking specifically to black men because this is who I'm seeing the most, having this nonchalant, not really caring, that moment of look, black women, you're at the bottom again type thing. So here is this video that I recently found online, and it's not pretty.
I don't think this is fair. Like, I understand this is your house, Ms. Lee, but I don't think this is fair.
I know it's not really all his fault. Can we stay here? Mommy. Can we just y'all can stay, but he can't stay. Why not?
Well, I don't understand. Like, this is we a family. Like, I understand, like, this is your house, but, like, I'm not leaving my family, so what you expect me to do?
I don't know what you gonna do, but you just can't stay here. Her and the kids can stay as long as they like. But Sean is a part of the family, so he gotta stay at a hotel? Like what? If you're trying to follow him, I suppose so.
No, I don't think that's no, man, because that's bogus. That's bogus. Like, I ain't finna cuss in just your house. I want to get loud. I ain't about to do that, but I literally can't stay here. Like, I have nowhere to go. We all got evicted. Like, I know you trying to say I'm the man and I was supposed to take responsibility, but life happens. Like, I don't understand why I can't stay here, Ms. Lee.
Stop.
I don't understand why I can't stay here.
Well, maybe just for like a week. Just a week, maybe. And then...
I mean, she just said y'all can stay as long as y'all need to, but I gotta
That's
leave.
what I'm trying to ask her, if you can stay for a week. Just at least a week. So you don't have to be out on the street by yourself.
So you gonna stay here even though I can't stay here? That's what I'm asking you. You still gonna just stay here and knowing I can't stay here?
Where else is we gonna go?
That's not the point though. Like, we supposed to be together on this. You finna let me sleep outside on the curb.
I didn't say you can sleep, but I'm trying to get you to be able to stay here. You don't want to stay here or not?
I don't want to be somewhere where I'm not welcome. She just said I can't stay here.
You know, she might change her mind.
So I can't stay here.
Just for a week. Come on.
I can't stay here, Ms. Lee.
I don't think that's a good idea.
Why? Why?
Y'all made no effort, or you didn't get a job or something so that y'all can have
school just started, and I had to get groceries, and then my car note was due, and then
So I'm gonna just stop the video right there. So again, like I said, people are saying, well, you just need a man. No, you need a man with a plan, because clearly just having a man doesn't really do much. There's 2 adults and 2 children in that household, and for whatever reason they weren't able to keep up with everything, and they end up in a situation where they're now pleading for a woman who owns a home to let them sleep in her home. She's deciding she does not want the man there, the husband, who actually, they aren't actually married. Let's just make that clear. They aren't married. She's basically saying your man can't stay, but you and the kids can stay. And that's one thing I wanted to point out, why I mentioned earlier about the fact that evictions are not equal to homelessness, and homelessness is not equal to unsheltered. In majority of cases, when women lose housing, they don't end up on the street. Family shelters are more likely to take in women. So in most cases, you will find them indoors. Like, you will not find women out on the street. And that's why it's important for Black men to recognize this and be a part of the solution to making sure that women aren't evicted, and that other men and boys aren't evicted either. Because just like in this case, she was more than willing to have the kids and mom stay there, but she is not willing to have the man stay there. Now to the next part, the next point of so let's get into the next factor. So eviction primarily affects people of lower income. We already know that. That is obvious facts. You usually are evicted because you can't pay bills. And for Black people, one of the many paths to avoiding low income is avoiding jail and getting an education or a skill. So it's unlikely that a majority of the Black women facing eviction are the same women that have college degrees, because degrees across the board, statistically speaking, make more than those without degrees. So in the cases that it is a college educated woman getting evicted, then it is highly likely that there's another negative factor that contributes to that situation. Black women are the most educated, yes, but they're the most educated by rate, but that comes at a cost, and that cost is high debt. Black women take on debt to go to college. Well, poor people in general are more likely to take on debt to attend college, whether they be Black, Hispanic, or white. Black people are historically poor, because of where they came from. It's historical. It's kind of simple. I think this could be mitigated, though, if Black women looked at trades as a career path, but there's obvious social structures in place that need to be dismantled for women to feel comfortable in certain trades. Women tend to lean towards more care-oriented careers, not because it's not because they care more about people. It's simply more expected and accepted for women to have certain roles and positions in society. We are slowly moving away from that, but that is still ingrained into the fabric of who we are as people and in our society. But also, critically speaking, the majority of women that are in this situation are not the same women, So that whole idea of how are you going to say you're the most educated, but you're also, the most evicted, those two things usually are not happening to the same woman. And if it is, it's probably because she may have went to college, but then she also is a single mom. Or she went to college, she's a single mom, she has $100K in debt, her car broke down, her mom died, and everything. Like, it's tragic. Like, just having a college degree, it does not mean that you're gonna somehow not be able to pay your bills. Or one thing doesn't cause a complete catastrophe of your life. Especially since most people received a payment pause for like almost the past 3 years. I don't really see how college debt or, having a degree contributed to the fact that you couldn't pay your rent for 3 years. But that's why I'm saying it has to be more things, like maybe she also lost her job. things of that sort. But speaking of career paths, my third point, women in general tend to have softer skill jobs, and those jobs pay less on average. They have lower employment rates than black men and participate in the workforce more consistently. Unironically, though, black women tend to hold social service positions. Like, they're more likely to be working at a homeless shelter, helping people that are homeless, men and women and children alike. So I quoted endhomelessness.org here, centering black people with lived experiences. In Los Angeles County, black men alone make up 22% of the homeless population in the country, despite only representing 4% of the country's general population. However, despite being one of the largest homeless populations, black men, let alone black men with lived experience of homelessness, are rarely in leadership positions in organizations and agencies dedicated to addressing homelessness. Such trends exist in LA County and most cities and counties across the U.S. Just quickly, let's point out the fact that, yes, black women right now are the face of evictions and eviction filings, but black men are the face of homelessness. So clearly we have a huge housing crisis within the black community. For obvious reasons, we're all facing the same issues, but instead of speaking about them as a whole and as a whole community, we're trying to single out different people. But let's continue. The absence of black men with lived experience of homelessness in leadership positions means that COCs are creating programs and policies to address homelessness while lacking profound influence from the single most impacted population, black men generally, and black men with lived experience of homelessness specifically, must be centered in addressing homelessness. And I quote, Reba and I personally know several organizations that have completed racial equity plans that included hiring black staff. However, half a decade later, they lament their inability to attract qualified black men to hire for leadership positions. The problem is not a lack of qualified candidates, but instead that organizations expect to suddenly find qualified black male leaders rather than actively recruiting, developing, and building an environment that cultivates black male leadership. Now, what the article is basically saying is that black male leaders have to be made. They aren't simply found, because they aren't seeking the positions even when they themselves have been a part of the evicted and or unsheltered community, i.e. homeless black men are not even, once they are saved from homelessness, looking to help other black men who are facing homelessness. I'm not telling black men to go get jobs at the shelter and community outreach, but because they don't pay much, right? So I guess that's why you guys aren't doing it. But a common criticism from black men when it comes to social services is that there are way more shelters and homeless services for women than there are for men. And that's just a fact. There's this article by the New York Post titled, I Feel Like I'm Back in Jail. Life Inside New York City's Broken Shelter System. Let's not even unpack that and go straight to the point. Last May, Stanley Castor, 39, was killed after fellow resident Patrick McDonough, 49, stabbed him repeatedly in the neck, shoulder, and arm at a Times Square hotel, doubling as a shelter, police said. About a month earlier, Timothy Paz, 29, was stabbed in his chest and back and slashed in the face and neck by an agitated drug addict resident at a Midtown homeless shelter, court records show. And in 2019, a 22-year-old homeless man living at an Upper West Side shelter was killed after a fellow resident, age 36 at the time, stabbed him numerous times in the chest, cops said. While women bed shelters are not amazing or great or a, vacation-like experience, high robbery happens in women's shelters, right? But in men's bed shelters, they experience high homicide. The men don't feel safe enough to even sleep there. What would you imagine the experience to be like for women having to work in a shelter of hundreds of homeless men. That's precisely why you don't see as many homeless shelters for men, because there just aren't enough men willing to work there. And you just, there's too much of a physical imbalance and, you know, drug imbalance to have a bunch of women working in a men's shelter, because shelter workers are outnumbered. You know, sometimes 40 per shelter worker. Talking about taking in hundreds of people a night. You'll need volunteers. Men are usually not volunteering for this type of thing unless it's Thanksgiving. You know what I mean? So I want to make this clear, right? It doesn't benefit a capitalist to have a high homeless population or rent so high people can't pay it. That would only benefit a socialist, right? So they can convince you to sign away your rights, and they'll tell you, hey, we'll pay for everything, right? Landlords want you to pay the rent. It ensures they keep the property. But supply and demand is always at hand. Some landlords want the most they can possibly get for a unit, and all tenants want to pay the least they can afford. When there's a shortage supply of high-paying tenants, landlords have to demand lower rent. When there is a short supply of units, renters have to pay more rent. That's just how it is. At this point in time, the safest bet is a 2-adult household whose expenses can be covered by a single person's income. Okay? So, with all of this, I'm trying to get at is that black women and black men need to work together, or couples in general, black couples specifically, need to work together in order to create stability for the community as a whole. Because although we are individuals, when statistics start getting calculated, we're no longer seen as individuals. We are seen as one whole group representation, right? So we need to really come together and start figuring this stuff out, because I don't want to see the internet blowing up about black men laughing at black women for being evicted. That just seems crazy. Like, it's really getting out of hand at this point. Like, as men should not be sitting here, you know, cackling at the idea of women struggling. They're women struggling. The women that look like them, women that give birth to them, laughing about them struggling as they struggle with the next generation in tow. Because like I said earlier, a lot of these women are struggling partially because they have children. You know, you have a child, you can't just get a 1-bedroom. You got to get a 2-bedroom because your child is growing. They need their own space. So now you have a single parent that has to pay for a 2-bedroom household. Maybe they have more children, you know, and they have to get bigger housing, and all of the burden is on one person. So I suggest for the men, this is not funny. Like, this is, call it what it is. It's not funny. And you guys are also facing huge issues as well when it comes to housing. You might not have as many eviction filings, but you have the highest homeless population. So, again, we need to focus. And then for the women, when it comes to having children, you have to look at it as business, just like marriage. Marriage is a business. Having children is a business. You know, you got to treat your children like they're your business, because they are your business. They're your primary business at all times. You know what I'm saying? So I just wanted to frame this conversation and really get into a lot of the details. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Again, please comment, subscribe, like the video, share if you have to. I try to remain as objective as possible. Yes, I am a black woman, and I do rent an apartment by myself. So I say that, and I say it very softly, because I'm not trying to be biased in this situation. Thank you guys for watching. It's the Drunk Capitalist. Peace.